13 spine-chilling girlfriend horror tales. She claimed love, then the sinister truth was exposed. Mark was feeling the tightness in his chest again. It came every night, just as the suburban shadows grew long and familiar. The sun dipped behind Maplewood's cookie-cutter homes, bathing everything in an ominous orange hue that clawed at the edges of his sanity. His daughter, Sophie, had now spoken about her new friend from the park, a mysterious girl who seemed to materialize out of thin air. Just like that, dread settled like a fog, whispering from the corners of his mind, warning him that something dark was hovering near. Days passed. Sophie was buzzing with excitement, showing Mark her latest finds: a broken bracelet, a rusted key, and drawings of places he'd never seen. The innocence in her eyes chilled him deeper than any late-night conversation he tried to have with Lisa. The evenings, which should have been full of familial warmth, turned into a string of unnerving moments: odd noises that sounded like whispers slithering through the patched walls of their home and the recurring giggles that echoed in the stillness. Sophie was lost in her imaginary world, but he sensed something sinister creeping in, but it wasn't just Sophie. Lisa was slipping away too. She'd smile and share theories about the weather or the neighborhood bake sale, yet there was an air of secrecy lingering over her. Each time she claimed to be at community events, a knot twisted tighter in Mark's stomach. She often left him alone with Sophie while she disappeared for hours. Was she hiding something? Was she involved in whatever twisted reality Sophie was entangled with? One night, everything changed. Mark overheard Sophie giggling and chattering excitedly. The laughter had a gleeful tinge, too innocent for the darkness he felt closing in. Sneaking to her door, a cold sweat coated his palms as he peeked inside. Empty. And the giggles faded into ghostly silence that made the hairs on his neck rise. He turned to Lisa, his voice shaky with fear. "What is happening? What is going on with Sophie?" She laughed nervously and waved him off, but Mark knew something was wrong. Fueled by a paralyzing dread, he turned to the internet, typing in phrases and descriptions until a local legend emerged: a fallen guardian spirit tied to a tragic event. A girl, lost decades ago in Maplewood. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue, with the bizarre gifts piling up and those eerie whispers intensifying. Mark's heart thudded like a war drum in his chest. He watched Lisa like a hawk after he found cryptic notes tucked into Sophie's backpack, leading to a connection between Lisa and a charming neighbor, one who had a curious obsession with their daughter. His breath hitched as he pieced it all together. A dangerous pact. Hidden secrets weaving around his family like thick vines ready to throttle him. As darkness draped over his once perfect life, Mark felt the panic rise. Just as he steeled himself to confront Lisa, the lights flickered violently. He turned, heart racing, as a shadow hovered behind him, echoing with whispers of Sophie's laughter that chilled him to the bone. What had his family stepped into? Would he find the strength to pull them back from the brink? Mark's heart hammered in his chest as he turned to face the shadow looming near him. The air grew thick with a suffocating tension. A chill crawled up his spine as he squinted into the dark. Was it just as he feared, or was his mind simply playing tricks? "Who is there?" he demanded, his voice trembling yet steady against the creeping dread. But silence draped over him, heavy and suffocating, wrapping around his throat like an icy vice. "Daddy?" Sophie's innocent voice sliced through the stillness. The shadow receded, and Mark whipped around to find her standing in her pajamas, clutching a stuffed bunny. The wide-eyed kid peered into the dark corners of the room, confounded. "I heard giggles." The joy in her voice was a sharp knife in his gut. He forced a smile, but his heart ached with fear. "It was probably just the TV, sweetheart. Why don't you go back to bed?" But I like it when she plays with me. She's nice. Sophie insisted, a dreamy look settling on her small features, those innocent eyes twinkling like she held a secret. Mark's chest tightened. The girl. The friend. What was so appealing about a child who belonged to a past he didn't understand? What's her name? Sophie shrugged, unfazed. She said it doesn't matter. She just wants us to play. All warmth drained from him. He felt a wave of nausea. What else had she said to Sophie in the dark hours? What stories had she spun? He glanced at the clock, it was nearing midnight. Unease gnawed at him. I need you to come with me, he managed, acutely aware of how Sophie's small hand felt as he led her down the hallway. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting into sinister shapes that pulsed with dread. As they crossed into the living room, the lights flickered again. The room felt alive, pulsating with terrifying energy. And that's when he saw it, lying innocently on the coffee table, a drawing, one of Sophie's despised creations. He stepped closer, jaw tight, as he inspected it under the dim light. It was the park, a twisted image with dark, scribbled trees casting oppressive shadows over a figure that looked unmistakably like Sophie. But beside her was a shadowy girl he didn't recognize. Her features were indistinct, not quite human. The eyes, however, they were hollow, like wells of darkness. Where did this come from? Mark's voice was barely above a whisper. Sophie skipped closer to him, her tiny fingers brushing against the edges of the drawing. She gave it to me. We made it together. She said we have a special bond. Mark's breath caught. A bond? The words echoed in the air, a sinister refrain tinged with malice. Sophie, I don't want you playing with her anymore. What? But she's my friend. Sophie protested, the pout on her face morphing into something eerily defiant, something that wasn't the sweet, innocent child he knew. No. I'm not allowing it, he said, louder this time. Panic rose as she resisted, grounding his resolve into desperate urgency. But even as he spoke, a whirlwind of dread enveloped him, making him feel small and powerless. Then the lights shut off, plunging them into suffocating darkness. The sudden silence roared in his ears. He felt Sophie's hand slip from his grasp, and the calmness of her laughter echoed around him, hauntingly joyful. Come play with us, Daddy, the laughter chimed, cascading, swirling around him until the very walls seemed to throb with it. And then it faded, replaced by an oppressive quiet that enveloped him like a blanket. Mark sprinted through the dark, searching for Sophie, frantic panic battling against the silence pressing on him. Sophie! Where are you? But there was no answer. Only the laughter continued, mingling with whispers that felt far too close. That he stumbled, fell hard to the floor, heart thundering in his ears. The shadows shifted, threatening, pulse racing. He couldn't let it take her. He had to reach her before it was too late. But what would he find? What had he unleashed? In that moment, the world around him twisted into a claustrophobic cocoon of darkness, leaving him stranded, terrified of the next echo of laughter. What game was he now part of, and who would be left standing when the night finally slipped away? The silence stretched like an elastic band, threatening to snap. Mark crawled along the floor, his fingers searching for any clue in the darkness. His eyes strained against the blackness, but nothing appeared, only the oppressive weight of fear. Sophie! He shouted, the name tearing from his throat. But the darkness swallowed his voice, muffling any sign of life. A sob racked his chest, but he stifled it, forcing himself to breathe, to think. What would he do? Then he felt something, a cold, clammy finger brushed his shoulder. He spun around, heart racing. Sophie! Daddy, I'm here. Her voice was soft, almost melodic, and came from somewhere very close, but when Mark turned, he found nothing. A breath caught in his throat, forcing panic to surge. He pushed to his feet, stumbling backward. Suddenly, a quiet giggle erupted, and the air thickened with dread. It was a child's laugh, sweet and taunting, it licked at the edges of his sanity. "Come on, Daddy. We want to play hide and seek." It was Sophie again, but the way she spoke made his skin crawl. "Play where?" he hollered back, trying to keep his composure. "Where are you, Sophie? Count to 10. 1 2 The voice faded, and with it, Mark's resolve. His chest tightened as he closed his eyes, trying to block out the shadows closing in around him. 1 2 3 The numbers swirled in his mind, blurring with his racing heart. For 5 he staggered to a window, hands pressed against the glass. The night outside loomed like a deep void, and he wished, not for the first time, that he had just pulled Sophie away from that creature. The darkness crackled with energy. No longer just shadows, figures lurked in the corners of the room. He could sense them, feel their cold breath. 6 7 8 The laughter intensified, a cacophony of sinister delight echoing around him. 9 10 Mark whipped around, panicking, waiting, desperate to spot Sophie, to hold her, to pull her back from whatever game was unfurling. In the dim light from the fridge, he spotted her standing in the doorway, a twisted smile on her face replaced by a blank expression as the room felt increasingly foreign. Shadows swirled behind her, morphing into grotesque shapes that stood waiting. Mark's breath hitched as realization sliced through him. She was not just playing. There was something deeply wrong. "Sophie, come here." Panic clawed at his chest like animalistic fear, a need to protect. "They want you to join us." She giggled again, but the sound rang false, layered with something darker. The shadows shifted, the figures growing more distinct, agonizingly beautiful and twisted. "Join who?" he demanded, unable to comprehend the shifting reality around him. The walls felt tighter, pushing back, taunting him. His daughter swayed, head tilted to the side. "You'll see. Just come play." Forever the laughter erupted again, rising to a crescendo that drowned out all thought. Mark stumbled back, his foot catching on the carpet. He crashed to the ground, eyes wide with dread. In that moment of vulnerability, he couldn't shake the primal feeling that the shadows were reaching for him. "Daddy, don't you want to play?" The laughter melded into whispers, dark voices wrapping around him. "No. I want you." His shout boomed against the walls, but the response came from the shadows. They pulsed and danced, creeping closer, enveloping him, wrapping his mind with whispers. "Come to us, join forever." Mark's heart raced as he pushed up against the wall, desperately searching the bright neon glow of the fridge light, his sole bastion against the impending dark. Then, just as quickly as it began, the shadows vanished. Silence enveloped the room once more. But Sophie, his daughter, stood straight and still, staring blankly into the infinite dark behind him. "Why did you leave, Daddy?" The question hung heavy, unsettling in its innocence. Mark's skin prickled, an icy dread settling into his bones. As he faced her, he realized the shadows weren't just in the corners, they were part of her now. What had she become? And what game was still left to play? He gripped her shoulders, searching her eyes for a flicker of recognition, for the child he loved, but all he found was a bottomless abyss staring back at him. "Please come back to me." But as he spoke, everything faded, light dimming, and shadows re-emerging, ready to take him down with them. Somewhere deep in the dark, laughter echoed again, answering his plea, mixing with the whispers of forgotten promises. What had he challenged, and at what cost? Mark's breath hitched as he felt the shadows swirl around him, wrapping tighter with each moment. Sophie stood there, her expression shifting from innocence to something he couldn't recognize. He wanted to scream, to shake her awake from whatever nightmare had consumed her. "Please, Sophie," he begged, his voice cracking. "You need to come back. We can leave this place together." But the shadows whispered, coaxing his daughter, teasing her with promises of joy that echoed eerily through the air. "Leave?" Sophie looked upwards, her eyes clouded. "But Daddy, these friends are so much fun. They play forever." The word sent chills racing down his spine. Friends? They were not friends. They were the very darkness looming inside his house, preying on the innocence he had fought so hard to protect. Don't you see, Sophie? They aren't your real friends. They want to take you away, forever. Her head tilted, eyes narrowing as the shadows flickered like dancing flames. You don't understand. We can be happy together. No. Mark shouted, desperation clawing at his throat. He lunged toward her, but the shadows erupted, a wave of cold fury crashing against him. He stumbled back, the darkness now tangible, its tendrils curling around his limbs like claws. He couldn't breathe, it was as if the room was compressing, the walls edging closer, daring him to surrender to despair. Sophie. He fought against the shadows, kicking and thrashing, but it only drew their gaze, their laughter rising again, a high-pitched cacophony that echoed in his ears. A deep, rumbling voice emerged from within the darkness, drowning out the laughter. Join us, Mark. It's easier than fighting. Let go. There's no escaping it. He could feel fear pooling in his stomach, rising like bile. No. I want to let you take her. From the depths of the shadows, something stirred. A form began to shape itself, rising slowly, and Mark's blood ran cold as he made out a figure, ghastly and ethereal. A long, thin face, eyes filled with hollow pits, and a mouth twisted into a sickening grin. Join us, it hissed, 1,000 whispers behind its voice. Your daughter is ours now. Your fight only prolongs her suffering. Mark's heart thundered. The realization sunk in, heavy and dark. This was not just a child's game. This was an entity, something ancient and malevolent, bent on reclaiming what it believed belonged to it. He felt an instinctual need to protect her, and with it surged anger he never knew he had. No. He latched onto the warmth of Sophie's arms, holding her tightly. You're mine. We can get out of here together. I want to lose you. As his words vibrated through the air, the shifting shadows jittered, recoiling momentarily, but their laughter resumed, even louder, infectious, like thunderclouds rumbling in an impending storm. They thrived on his fear. They multiplied in the very essence of his dread. Come and play with us, Mark. Sophie's voice was different now, it carried a haunting lilt, each word infused with the chorus of dark laughter. We can all be together forever, shut up. Mark barked, shaking her again, trying to reach her. But the effort felt futile. The more he struggled, the further she seemed to disappear beneath the weight of the darkness that he turned his focus back to the approaching figure, forcing himself to stand tall against the cold wave of hopelessness trying to wash over him. You'll never have her. His voice echoed back at him, fiercer than before, the shadows recoiled, a flash of rage erupting, and Mark felt a sharp, icy fingertips brush against his arm. It was now or never. In that instant, something deep inside him ignited, a spark of defiance against everything he faced. Enough. He screamed, a fierce roar echoing through the darkness as he pulled Sophie close, prepared to confront whatever lurked in the shadows. But just as he stepped forward, the air around him crackled violently. Everything froze. Time hung suspended as shadows twisted and formed into more nightmarish shapes, encircling him, ready to strike. Join us, the voices crescendoed. Pulling him deeper into their clutches, churning the very fabric of reality, and then, an unsettling whisper broke through the chaos, clear and shrill, but what if she chooses us instead? A dread like no other washed over him as he looked into Sophie's eyes, her expression shifting once more. Daddy, who will you play with? The world spiraled as darkness threatened to engulf him whole. Mark's heart raced, thrumming against his ribs like a trapped bird. Sophie's gaze drilled into him, her innocence slipping away like sand through fingers. His fingers trembled, gripping her tighter as if he could anchor her to the real world, a realm devoid of shadows and whispers that taunted him. Please, Sophie. He forced the words out, desperate. You're not yourself. It's just the darkness. Fight it. But her face morphed again, a quick glance that sent fear spiraling down Mark's spine. The darker corners of the room echoed with sinister giggles. Those voices wrapped around her, making softness turn to steel, confusion to certainty. What if I don't want to? Her words sliced through him, crystal clear, yet heavy with something he could barely comprehend. Something cold wash over him, pooling in his stomach. He didn't want to believe she was choosing that world over him. No. No, no, no. You have to want this. We have to leave. He pleaded, frantically looking for any sign of the daughter he'd raised, a flicker of recognition, a glimmer of the love they shared. She stood too still amongst the chaos, an unsettling calm enveloping her like a cloak. Mark, the shadows twisted and flickered, and the figure he'd seen before loomed closer, casting an awful pall over everything. You're just prolonging her pain. Let her join us. They all want to play. He couldn't breathe. The air thickened, squeezing out thoughts and hope alike. With every second that passed, Sophie seemed to drift further away. Each laugh grew louder, morphing into a horrible symphony that filled his mind with discord. Stay away from her. Mark snarled, shaking Sophie again, exerting every ounce of his strength. You're not doing this. You're not. The shadows danced, spiraling proudly as if they had won. The figure's grin widened, revealing teeth that were too many, too sharp, and glistening in malevolence. Why fight when you can have what everyone desires? Look at the joy they possess. Look at her. Sophie's eyes twinkled then, but not with familiarity. Mark's stomach twisted, realizing it was something else. An unholy glee. It's fun, Daddy. Lots of games and laughter. I can be happy here. No. The word erupted from him as a cry, a mixture of anguish and fury. He lunged forward, fists clenched, but the shadows recoiled, flaring to life like a lion ready to pounce. Panic boiled into rage. He just might have enough courage to break through that looming darkness if he could just find a way to cut the chains binding Sophie to them. Stop. You're better than this. He yelled. Look around. This isn't a game. They're playing with your soul. With my heart. Suddenly, the room pulsed. The very walls trembled, breathing with shadows. The air crackled with tension. Sophie tilted her head, confusion darting in her eyes for just a flicker of a moment. In that split second, Mark seized upon it. Remember the time at the park? He shouted, hoping she would latch on to that memory. When we fed the ducks, and we laughed till our sides hurt. Remember that day? You said it was magic. For an instant, time slowed. The laughter faded, shadows unwilling to absorb what could inspire joy. Mark saw a shimmer of clarity in Sophie's eyes, then it flickered like a dying light. Daddy, before any connection could materialize, the laughter burst forth again, more insistent, clawing against his fragile semblance of hope. The shadows surged forward, enveloping her in an insufferable grip. Join us. Come play. They screeched with maniacal glee, then came the voice again, softer, more seductive. You can't win, Mark. The choice is hers to make. Mark's heart pounded. What if she did choose them? The tightness in his chest expanded, cold and consuming. No, Sophie. Please, remember the love, the joy. But her face became still, caught between realms, and the darkness snarled. She's ours now. As if filled with molten dread, the shadows shifted. Seconds turned into eternity. Mark understood with every tortured breath that their grasp was unyielding, the challenge of separation growing dimmer. Then Sophie's gaze pierced his soul once again, though it burned now with shadows. What if I like it here, Daddy? Mark's reality broke. What if she did? In that moment, the world around them spun wildly, closing in like a vice. He had to act. He had to decide. And just as shadows threatened to twist him away from all that mattered, a spine-chilling promise delivered through the cacophony caught his ear. what is love if not a game we can all play together? Before Mark could process the implications, Sophie's soft voice whispered in the storm, "Daddy, will you play too?" The darkness folded over him like a shroud, squeezing tighter until the last trace of light faded, leaving only the chilling echo of her question. What choice remained for him as shadows loomed? Mark's world dissolved into a mass of shadows, each one whispering sweetly malevolent promises in his ear. His body felt heavy, rooted to the ground as if cement had replaced his bones. Sophie's voice echoed, mingling with ghostly laughter, clawing at his senses. It was a nightmare he feared he'd never wake from. "Don't leave me, Sophie," he gasped, grappling for purchase in the dark sea of despair. He imagined pulling her back from the brink, from the playhouse of phantoms that had seduced her. But how? His mind raced, desperate fingers searching the darkness for any flicker of hope. Yet each second slipped away, leaving nothing but a hollow, gnawing fear. The shadows coiled tighter around Sophie, transforming her into a marionette dancing for their amusement. "Let go, Daddy. The others are so much fun," she sang, her voice like broken glass. It pierced him. That wasn't his daughter speaking. That was something else. With a sudden fury, Mark lunged forward, bolting through the fog of darkness. He reached for her, but his hand brushed through the cool air where she stood, feeling only the choking weight of strange energy that pulsed around them. The laughter morphed into jeers, mocking him. "Can't catch her, can't save her." His pulse quickened, pounding a rhythm of panic. He couldn't just stand there. He would find a way. "Look. Look at me, Sophie." Mark shouted, struggling to keep his voice steady amidst the chaos. "You don't belong here. Think about the love we shared. Think about your mom. We'd go hiking in the woods, remember?" The momentum shifted. Her face flickered with recognition for a heartbeat. Just a heartbeat. Her eyes glinted with the warmth he longed to see. But it was gone, swirling into the emptiness, devoured by cackling shadows. "Mommy," she muttered, her voice trembling, a plaintive note emerging from the storm of laughter. Was it a window? Hopes rekindled, Mark pushed harder. "Exactly, Sophie. Remember her. She loved you more than anything." Mark's words fumbled out in a reckless rush, his heart a wild drum in his chest. "The garden. The flowers we planted together. You became a butterfly, remember?" The shadows shrieked, their cackle tightening around her like a vice, but he wouldn't let up. "Sophie, please. You're stronger than they are. Fight the darkness. We will find our way back." But they roared a frustrating defiance, threatening to swallow him whole. The air thickened, pressing in around him as if the walls wished to crush him. Desperation clawed at his throat. Each breath tasted bitter, laced with smoke and screams. Sophie's voice was faint, barely above a whisper, still caught in the web of laughter. What if I don't want to?" Ice flooded Mark's veins. He hesitated, the question drilling through his hope like a knife. "You can't mean that." He choked out. "You have to want to escape. Don't let them choose for you." "Why should I?" Her voice hardened again, tracing the contours of bewitched joy. "I can have everything here, be happy." "No." The primal scream ripped from his throat, raw and pained. "That happiness isn't real. It's just shadows playing tricks. They're lying to you." And just like that, a shuddering silence fell. All at once, the shadows retreated a breath, allowing a moment to breathe. Mark's gaze pierced through the stillness, searching for any flicker of life, any resistance blooming in his little girl. But as the quiet stretched out, twisting around him like a noose, something shifted. The room began to pulse again, the walls vibrating with an awful energy. Laughter echoed ominously, a commandment of dread that sent shivers cascading down his spine. He turned, his eyes widening as he faced the figure emerging from the gloom, its grin impossibly wide. "You see? She can have joy. And you can join her." Together, you'll never have to be alone again. A scream lodged in Mark's throat as he fought against the pull of the shadows, desperate, wild. Fear ignited his heart, casting off flickers of determination. He was losing her, he could feel her slipping further away, deeper into the chaos. But how? How do you fight shadows? As darkness closed in, fevered and possessive, his thoughts raced to answer, to claw his way out. The laughing shadows wrapped around his thoughts, whispering lies and promises through his ears, and then, Sophie's voice cut through it all with a clarity that shattered him. It didn't just echo, it demanded. Daddy, if you want me to stay, what will you sacrifice? Suddenly, the world collapsed around him, the question crashing through the storm, its implications undeniable, a choice, dark and heavy. What would he risk to save her? What would he give up? In that suffocating darkness, a chilling truth awaited. Would he have the courage to make the ultimate sacrifice, or would he be consumed as shadows gathered, hungry for his despair? Mark's heart thundered in his chest, a frantic beat drowning out the laughter that swirled around him. He could feel the shadows tightening, twisting like vipers. The question hung in the air like a noose. What would he sacrifice? Anything. He shouted, but the words came out raw and desperate. The figure laughing at him moved closer, its grin spreading wider, eyes glinting with malice. It whispered, anything. What does that mean to you? Don't listen to it, Sophie. Mark implored, eyes darting to where he thought she might be. Stay with me. You're my light. We can beat them together. But the shadows pulsed like a living thing, surrounding him, mocking his every plea. You already lost her, the entity taunted, finger tracing the outline of Mark's despair. You're the one trapped here, she's free to dance. Mark's thoughts spiraled into madness. He clutched at his head, grappling for clarity amid the chaos. It felt like drowning. What do you want from me? He howled into the darkness, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Just a piece of yourself, to keep the balance, the shadow hissed with delight, as if it savored his horror. The shadows spun faster now, forming a cyclone of whispers that ricocheted off the walls. Sacrifice anger. Sacrifice fear. Leave behind the part of you that clings. Sacrifice my fear. Mark echoed, struggling to make sense of the madness. Could he really do that? Wasn't fear a part of survival? But as he contemplated, Sophie's laughter faded, replaced by the sobering grasp of what he'd lose if he succumbed. Please, Sophie. He cried out again, a howl of panic. Fight. You're stronger than they say. Stronger. Her voice returned, hurt and confused. But, Daddy, here. I feel free. No pain, just fun and games. You always told me to be happy. So why fight? Mark could hear the pain laced in her words, the fragments of her innocence caught by the shadows. It twisted like a dagger in his gut. Because there's more than this, he choked out, searching desperately for something, anything, to engage that flicker of recognition in his daughter's eyes again. There's a life beyond these walls. Memories, family. You can't trade that for a fleeting illusion. The shadows stilled momentarily, flickering like a candle's flame. Mark's words resonated somewhere deep in them, a spark of hope that felt fragile, almost petulant against the encroaching dark. You're not just a toy, he insisted, looking for a reaction. You have to remember who you are. We need each other, Sophie. Fight back. But the figure next to him inched closer, its claws stretched toward Sophie with a predatory grace. Look how happy she is now. Why would you want to change that? Sophie giggled, twirling through the fog, but the sound broke Mark's heart. Join me, Daddy. She sang, but within the melody lay a sinister undertone. The shadows are fun. Mark felt the shadows wrapping tighter, their dark fingers curling around his limbs, rooting him deeper into despair. No. No. You're not happy. It's a lie. His mind raced as he thought about what he could take away. Fear. No, that would mean risk. Anger. That would make him weak. Then what will you choose? The malevolent figure chimed sweetly, its voice now laced with cold fascination. She only wants joy. As he fought against the leering shadows, he realized the truth glimmering, treacherous, right in front of him. What if he sacrificed his humanity? The thought stung. Would he be willing to let go of what made him whole? A wave of cold reality crashed over him. What if she could only be saved with the ultimate price? Daddy. Sophie's voice, sweet and innocent still, lured him. Are you coming to play forever? He looked into the vastness, the dark void swirling with endless choices, and steeled himself as a shiver coursed through him. Please, Sophie, you have to wake up. As darkness encircled him like a shroud, Mark took one last look at the space where Sophie twirled, trying to grasp her smiling face one final time. It was slipping lost in shadow and an abyss that cried out for him. Together, forever. Released the echo from the abyss. Mark felt his will faltering, shivering beneath the weight of the choice, and then, the laughter changed. It cracked. It warped. Distance turned to dread as a single, chilling whisper threaded through the shadows. What if the sacrifice is her? Mark trembled, heart racing, as the truth hung heavily. What would he lose if he let the darkness claim Sophie? Would he destroy her to save them both? He took a step forward, the walls pulsating once again, and realized, the answer would come at a cost. As darkness began to close in, one haunting question echoed in his mind, carving away the last shreds of hope. Was he ready to face the shadow's demand? Would he dare to plummet into the unknown to save his little girl? Mark felt the air thicken, a suffocating weight pressing down on him, as he searched the shadows for any sign of Sophie. Shadows danced erratically like phantoms mocking his fear. Helplessness coiled around him, squeezing tighter until he could barely breathe. Every heartbeat echoed through the void, reminding him of the task at hand. The laughter continued, an unsettling harmony that twisted in his ears. Do it, the sinister figure urged, voice smooth as silk yet chilled like ice. Embrace the darkness. Let go of everything. It's the only way she can remain happy. But the image of Sophie, her innocent face touching fleeting memories of sunshine and warmth, flickered in his mind. With desperation gnawing at his insides, he grasped at the fraying edges of hope. You're lying. He shouted, sweat trickling down his back. You want to break me. You want her to stay lost in this nightmare. The shadows rippled, and echoes of laughter morphed into whispers, slithering around him, entwining with his thoughts. What about you, Mark? What do you truly want? Sacrifice her joy for your own peace? How selfish! The voice clawed its way across his mind, prompting him to reconsider. How could he burden Sophie with his pain? Visions of her happiness clung to him, invasive and intoxicating. Wouldn't she be better off here, forever laughing and playing without a care? No. He shouted, teeth clenched as rage flickered inside him. I want to let you do this. I would rather face my deepest fears than let you take her. But as he spat those words, the ground beneath him trembled. The shadows shrieked, twisting into grotesque forms, faces appearing within their depths, taunting him. Face your fears, then. We can help you, but you must sacrifice something truly precious. Images of his life flickered before him, moments of joy with Sophie, their shared smiles, and the warmth of her hand in his. They were distortions in the haze, collapsing into waves of shadow, dragging him closer to an abyss he couldn't escape. Mark, the shadows whispered in unison, their voices a haunting chorus. Give us your memories of her. Let them join us in eternal night. She will remain here, dancing free of sorrow. Pain sliced through him. Memories? Would losing them mean he'd lose her altogether? Mark's breath quickened, each inhale tasting bitter with dread. You're trying to trick me. I won tea, but the shadows roared, a cacophony of anguish laced with glee. Then she perishes, and all you've ever known with her. He felt the room begin to tilt, his equilibrium lost in the swell of chaos. Mark fought against the tide, grasping for any ongoing thread. Sophie. Fight. Remember us. Remember me. For a dreadful moment, silence enveloped him, swallowing the laughter, stilling the shadows. Then, as if fed by his desperation, a flicker of light pierced the gloom, a small, bright sun hanging in the void. The shadows shrank back, hissing, their power waning. Daddy? Sophie's voice broke through, clarity woven through fragile threads. Help me please, I feel them there pulling. His heart leaped. I'm here. I'm coming. Mark moved toward the light, but it wavered, dimming as if recoiling from him. The darkness surged, relentless and ravenous. Let her go. He roared, but the shadows laughed, shoving him back into despair. You can't win, Mark. Not without sacrifice. Sweat dripped from his brow, paralyzing realization taking hold. Could he save her? Was he willing to cast himself into annihilation if that was the price? The shadows encroached again, whispers echoing wildly, wrapping him in their cold embrace. Your choice now, Mark, her light or your past. Caught in the swirling darkness, the walls seemed to crumble around him, echoes of laughs morphing into screams. He felt himself break, warping between his love for Sophie and the sinister offer laid before him. And then he froze. Mark's breath stopped. One thought punctured through the chaos: what if all I need to do is let go of my fear of losing her to truly save her? A consequence was waiting, lurking in the shadows, ready to claim its prize. Let the sacrifice begin. The voice dripped from the shadows, intoxicating and grotesque, as Mark confronted the truth that might rip them apart forever. What price was he truly willing to pay? As darkness closed in, Mark felt himself teeter on the edge, the choice poised in his hands. Would he cast aside his very essence for a chance to save Sophie? The moment stretched, heavy and unyielding, leaving him gasping in the depths of uncertainty. What if the price for Sophie's freedom was the darkest corner of his soul? Mark's heart thundered in his chest, a primal drumbeat merging with the whispers that spiraled around him. Shadows slithered closer, their presence a suffocating fog, wrapping around him like steel bands. The taunting laughter rose, a discordant symphony scratching at his sanity. What will it be, Mark? Her joy or your memories? Choose, or lose her forever. He staggered, a wave of anguish crashing over him. The darkness beckoned, seductive and cruel. A faint memory flickered in his mind: Sophie's laughter spilling out like sunlight, an innocent adventure at a park, her tiny hands grasping at daisies as if they could save the world. Mark. Sophie's voice dimmed, desperation creeping in. Please. I can feel them taking everything I am, and that plea shattered him. What kind of father trades his daughter's laughter for his own anguish? I can't do it, he shouted, his voice raw. She needs me. The shadows screeched in protest, a cacophony of blended voices that gnawed at his resolve. Then lose her. Embrace the void, she would be free. The walls at the edge of his vision began to warp and dissolve, revealing swirling reflections of his worst nightmares. A monstrous creature, formed from twisted recollections, loomed forward with hollow eyes that spoke volumes of sorrow and loss. Its mouth opened wide, emitting a sound so filled with despair that it sent chills racing down his spine. Look. Remember what she'll become if you don't grant the darkness your essence. Mark gasped, imagining Sophie locked in this vortex forever, her laughter silenced, innocent joy stripped away until nothing remained but an empty shell. It twisted his stomach, pulling him into the pit of hopelessness. You'll be the reason for her pain if you hesitate, taunted the shadows, their voices blending into a haunting melody that he was drowning in their lies. The abyss pulsed around him, drawing him closer, so close he could almost feel its cold breath on his skin. Yet, deep within that suffocating darkness, clutched like a treasure, was the flickering hope of Sophie. He seized it, refusing to let it slip away. No. I want to sacrifice her to save myself. Mark bellowed, his voice resonating through the shifting shadows as defiance coursed through him. I'd rather let her go free, let her laugh in that light, no matter how much it tears me apart. In that moment, the shadows wailed. The darkness writhed, a furious storm of howls echoing bitterly as they shrank back. The light shimmered brighter now, growing in strength. It stretched out like a beacon, drawing Mark forward. Daddy Sophie's voice quivered, a fragile thread of hope among the chaos. I need you, but I'm scared. Mark reached out, chasing the light and her voice. He could feel the overwhelming rush of his love, a force strong enough to push against the malevolent weight encroaching on his mind. He charged forward into the radiance, surrendering to that instinctive warmth, but just as hope surged, the figure of darkness erupted into a frenzy. You think this is over? You dare defy us? Consequences await. The shadows twisted violently, morphing into nightmarish faces that clawed at the very essence of his will. The ground shattered beneath him, sending him spiraling into a whirlpool of blackness, an ocean of despair. Beneath his feet, the abyss roared, fangs of sorrow snapping at his ankles, and Mark fought desperately against the pull. Sophie! Hold on to me! Suddenly, as if bellowing from the depths of the abyss, a shrill laugh pealed out. You think you'll save her? The cost is rising, Mark. Will you still stand firm? Mark's mind spun, caught between the shadow's lies and Sophie's cries. That price he vowed not to pay loomed larger with every breath he took. Choose before the darkness consumes you both. Choose wisely or lose everything forever. Mark had no escape. His heart slammed against his ribcage, pounding like a war drum. Fear twisted like serpents within him, coiling tighter. He had gambled his soul, but now his next move could mean life or death, joy or eternal despair. What new horror awaited him, should he dare to move? As shadows encircled, the weight of his decision loomed larger than ever. Could he pierce the veil of darkness and pull Sophie back to the light? The answer teased at the edges of his mind, waiting to be unveiled. With everything collapsing around him, Mark felt the dark tide pull him under, an abyss stretching wider, ready to swallow him whole. No, he shouted, rage fueling him, igniting something fierce inside. He couldn't just stand by. He wouldn't let the shadows claim Sophie. Daddy! The cry cut through the darkness, piercing him with an urgency that transcended fear. I'm here. Mark roared, his voice hoarse but resolute, slashing through the suffocating whispers around him. He would reach her. No matter the cost. As he pushed through the curtain of shadows, he recalled their laughter, the gentle music of Sophie's voice, the warmth of her tiny body snuggling against him at night. Those moments, the ones woven from love, held the light needed to break the curse surrounding them. Remember, Sophie. He implored, eyes wide with desperate hope, forcing those cherished memories to the forefront of his mind. Remember who you are. You are my daughter. We've shared joy and laughter, and this darkness is a lie. Suddenly, he felt the ground shift, shadows recoiling like snakes struck by a sudden light. Holding tightly to that hope, Mark surged forward, racing toward the last flicker of Sophie he could see. I want to lose you. I'd rather endure the darkness than let it steal you away. The shadows swirled aggressively, shrieking in protest as if they were alive, trying to smother him. Foolish human. You can't win against what you refuse to sacrifice. Their voices melded into a mocking chorus that sent tremors through him. Mark's heart raced within his chest, an echo of relentless determination. You underestimate the strength of love. His shout resonated, vibrating through the darkness and pushing it back. With every ounce of strength, he felt the flicker of warmth growing within him, feeding off the memories they created together. He imagined Sophie running into his arms during those crisp autumn afternoons, the way she laughed as the leaves crunched beneath her little boots, or how her eyes sparkled with wonder when she spotted the first fireflies of the summer night. The shadows twisted in agony, screeching and writhing as he broke through the thick fog of despair closing in on him. You will not take her. He bellowed, channeling his love into a fierce fire, unleashing his deepest fears to the wind. I will sacrifice my comfort, my peace, even my existence before I let her go. At that, the shadows faltered, that ethereal pull retreating as they cringed under the onslaught of his pure, unwavering love. The luminous warmth burst forth, casting aside the gloom. Mark darted into the vastness, reaching for the light, reaching for Sophie where shadows couldn't follow. Sophie! He called again, the urgency of her name reverberating off the shapeless walls of darkness. Hold on to me, sweetheart. In the abyss, time snapped back, the laughter pulsed more softly, teasingly. Mark could feel Sophie's presence like a trembling heartbeat, a flickering flame in a darkened room. He seemed closer now, closer than ever, and with a final surge of strength, he pushed through, arms outstretched. Light engulfed him, illuminating the darkness that confined them. He could hear them, those corrupted whispers strangled by the clarity of love. It was a moment suspended in time, a breath held between worlds, and then he saw her. Sophie stood just beyond the reach of shadows, eyes wide, face pale yet shimmering with disbelief. Daddy! She cried, reaching for him with glistening innocence. Come to me, darling! Mark yelled, his voice thick with emotion as he lunged forward, wrapping his arms around her. The moment their skin met, warmth surged through him, pushing the chilling darkness away. But the entity writhed, approaching rapidly with fury. You dare to defy us? It snarled, face contorted by rage, baleful eyes burning with both fear and loss. Mark tightened his grip around Sophie, holding her close. We choose love. We will not let you take her. Together, they faced the oncoming storm of shadow, their bond radiating an undeniable power. You will never have her. They declared. In unison, defying the entity's assertions. The shadows screeched, spiraling away, retreating, unable to stand against the pure force of a father's love united with his daughter. Mark breathed deep, pulling the strength of every cherished memory into one blazing star that shone brightly in the dark. Slowly but surely, light began to infuse the dark like oil in water, slowly dissolving it away. And as the entity shrieked and vanished into the void, Mark felt an overwhelming rush of bliss. The darkness shattered, turning to mere wisps of smoke as the world brightened around them. They stood hand in hand, reality reforming, the shadows dissipating into nothingness, a haunting echo fading into silence. The park, now radiating with life and warmth, bloomed before them like a forgotten dream. Daddy, where were we? Sophie asked, blinking against the brilliant sunlight. We were fighting, Mark replied, kneeling to her level, looking deep into her eyes, filled with a familiar light. Fighting for each other. She beamed up at him, that innocent joy rekindled, a dazzling radiance illuminating his world. Can we play now? With all my love, we can, he replied, pulling her in for a hug, the reminder that no shadow could ever sever the bond of true love. As they joined the laughter of the world around them, Mark knew that no darkness, no haunting horror, could ever threaten them again. Their love had conquered, their souls intertwined, deep and everlasting. This was the end of their nightmare, but the beginning of something beautiful, triumph sewn together in threads of trust and an unbreakable bond. And as they spun joyfully amid sunlit laughter, a promise echoed in the depths of their hearts: love would always prevail, and from darkness, they would find the strength to emerge into the light. If this story moved you, you need to subscribe now. Hit that bell for all notifications so you don't miss the incredible tales coming your way. Smash the like button. Your support helps this channel reach more amazing fans like you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. What do you think happens next? And finally, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this heart-stopping conclusion. Together, let's keep this story alive.